Imagine an empire valued at $32 billion. At the center of it, a boy wonder founder, celebrated as a modern J.P. Morgan, promising to use his genius to literally change the world. This was supposed to be the new face of crypto, but behind all the celebrity endorsements and the flashy marketing, the vault was empty, and in less than 10 days, that entire illusion would just shatter, exposing one of the biggest financial frauds in modern history. So let's start with the number at the absolute heart of this whole scandal, $8 billion. When the new management team finally got the keys to the wreckage of FTX, this was the size of the black hole they found. This wasn't a market loss. This was customer money that had just vanished. And what's so wild is that just days, literally days, before the entire company imploded, this was the public message from its founder, Sam Bankman-Fried, a tweet that he later deleted. But it became this digital monument to a massive, massive lie. So the big question is, how did so many smart people get this so incredibly wrong? Well, to really understand the collapse, you first have to understand the man at the center of the storm and the powerful story he sold to the world. Okay, so meet Sam Bankman-Fried, or SBF, as pretty much everyone called him. His public image was, let's be honest, perfectly crafted. He was the brilliant, kind of quirky visionary who was just too busy changing the world to care about stuff like suits or shoes. I mean, the guy played video games during multi-million-dollar investor meetings and famously slept on a beanbag in the office. This wasn't just a personality quirk. It was his brand. And he used that brand to build this incredible veneer of legitimacy. FTX spent hundreds of millions of dollars on these huge, high-profile deals. Tom Brady, Steph Curry. They even bought the naming rights for the Miami Heat's basketball arena. It wasn't just about advertising. It was a strategy. It made this risky, offshore crypto exchange feel as safe and American as watching a football game. And it's a classic move, right? When you look this legit, people are way less likely to ask the really hard question. Now, the story he was always telling was wrapped up in this philosophy called effective altruism. The core idea sounds great, right? Use logic and data to figure out how to do the most good in the world. For SBF, this was his justification for making billions of dollars. He called it earning to give. The whole plan was to build a massive fortune, only to give it all away to the most effective charities. But here's where that really noble-sounding philosophy just collides with a pretty shocking reality. This is a quote from his closest associate, Caroline Ellison, the CEO of his trading firm. And in court, she testified that SBF had this mindset where the ends, doing the most good, could justify pretty much any means. She said he didn't think basic rules, like don't lie or don't steal, really applied to him. So with that in mind, let's pull back the curtain and take a look at the hidden mechanics of this whole operation. How did it all actually work behind the scenes? You really need to understand that there were two key companies here. On one side, you had FTX. That's the crypto exchange the public saw, where millions of people deposited their money thinking it was safe. But on the other side, you had Alameda Research. This was SBF's private hedge fund, and its job was to make huge, risky bets in the market. Publicly, they were separate companies. In reality, they were illegally tangled together. Alright, this is the most important part to understand. The secret flow of money. Here's the money flow map, if you will. Step 1. Customers. People like you and me deposit billions into FTX, trusting it's being held safely. Step 2. A secret line of code was written, a feature they called allow negative. This basically gave Alameda a secret backdoor to customer funds. Step 3. FTX customer money was funneled through that backdoor over to Alameda. And finally, Step 4. Alameda takes that money, other people's money, and uses it for whatever it wants. Incredibly risky trades, venture capital investments, political donations, even luxury penthouses in the Bahamas. And we're not talking about a small loan here. No way. That secret backdoor gave Alameda a staggering, basically unlimited line of credit. At one point, it hit $65 billion, all of it funded by FTX's own customers who had absolutely no idea. So you're probably asking, what was securing this insane $65 billion debt? Was it cash? US dollars? No. It was a crypto token called FTT, a token that FTX literally created out of thin air. And since FTX and Alameda owned most of the FTT tokens, they could basically control the price. The entire multi-billion-dollar operation was balanced on a house of cards that they built themselves. A system built like this, a house of cards, it can't last forever, right? Well, in early November of 2022, one single domino fell, and the entire thing came crashing down with just breathtaking speed. And that's the thing that's just so stunning. From the very first sign of trouble to complete and total bankruptcy, the entire $32 billion empire was just gone, wiped out in less than 10 days. So let's just walk through that timeline, because it's wild. It all started on November 2nd, when a news report from CoinDesk revealed that Alameda's balance sheet was basically built on that shaky FTT token. Then, on November 6th, the rival exchange Binance announced it was selling all of its FTT. That sparked a massive panic. A classic bank run started, with customers trying to pull out $6 billion in just 3 days. By November 8th, FTX couldn't pay, and they froze all customer withdrawals. A last-minute rescue deal from Binance fell apart a day later. And then, by November 11th, it was all over. Bankruptcy. Okay, so after the financial implosion came the legal fallout. The story now moves from trading screens and balance sheets to a federal courtroom in New York City. SBF wasn't just accused of making a bad business decision. No, he was facing a wall of federal charges that painted a picture of a deliberate, complex criminal operation. We're talking wire fraud, conspiracy to commit wire fraud, money laundering, the list goes on. And the prosecution's case? It was devastatingly strong because it was built on testimony from the people who knew everything, because they helped build it, his closest friends and executives, including Caroline Ellison and FTX co-founder Gary Wang. They all pleaded guilty to their own crimes, and then testified that they did it all at the direction of Sam Bankman-Fried. After a trial that lasted just over a month, the jury took only a few hours to decide. They found him guilty on all 7 criminal counts. The final sentence? 25 years in federal prison. The collapse of FTX was obviously a catastrophe for its customers, but it's also a really stark case study. So, what can we actually learn from all this? And more importantly, how can we spot the warning signs next time? So, let's go through a quick checklist of the red flags, the warning signs that were really all there in plain sight. First, that huge conflict of interest between the exchange and the hedge fund. Second, there was no real board of directors, zero corporate oversight. Third, the company was based offshore specifically to avoid regulation. Fourth, their main collateral was a token they just printed themselves. And finally, You had this extreme, over-the-top hype combined with a total lack of transparency. And all of this really boils down to one crucial point: due diligence. Doing your homework is not optional. Scrutiny is not optional. And this doesn't just apply to crypto. It applies to any investment. Whenever promises of easy, huge returns and world-changing visions seem too good to be true, they almost always are. And that leaves us with one final thought. This entire $32 billion empire wasn't really built on technology or some amazing financial innovation. It was built on a story. It was built on a personality. In short, it was built on trust.